Hi, and welcome to Binary Personality. You can join the discussion in Slack. You can find the links in the description below. You can like and subscribe if you like that sort of thing. And quick disclaimer, this is not Myers-Briggs. I try to keep my opinions in line with Psychological Types by Carl Jung. If you have any issues with anything that I say regarding psychological types, please find me in Slack. Links in the description below. Thank you. Okay. In this series, I'm going to get into something that I call function spaces or function realms. You could say it's my theory, but I think whatever your theory is or whatever answers we come up with to the puzzles of that I'm trying to answer in this theory are puzzles that everyone needs to address, puzzles that Jung kind of leaves us with. And we can all have different answers. That's fine. But I'm going to, in this series, try to communicate what those puzzles are, what the riddles are that we need to have come up with answers to in order to fully grasp the concept of Jung's four functions and consciousness and all these things. I've been studying psychological types for several years now. I have a blog, you could check it out, where I take notes on it. I have a couple of videos that I put up there, and I have discussions. You could join my Slack group with other people who are interested in psychological types, and some things started to form in my mind, questions that I had. Something formed. It's very hard to explain. And the thing that formed was this thought, this understanding formed intuitively, I guess, which looked something like this. Intuitives intuit feelings. They don't feel them. Intuitives intuit thoughts. They don't think them. Intuitives intuit sensations. They don't sense them. Sensors sense feelings. They don't feel them. Sensors sense thoughts. They don't think them. Sensors sense intuitions. They don't intuit them. Feelers feel sensations. They don't sense them. Feelers feel intuitions. They don't intuit them. Feelers feel thoughts. They don't think them. Thinkers think sensations. They don't sense them. Thinkers think intuitions. They don't intuit them. And thinkers think feelings. They don't feel them. And what all that means, I want to try to explain simply. So many things are complicated to explain, and so many things need to be addressed. But the answer to these things that I just said, what they mean and how to understand them, that's what I tried to figure out and research reading psychological types. This question came up. These sentences came up to me intuitively, and I needed to find out what they meant. And to understand that, I made this diagram. This diagram is the result of several iterations. And intuitively I could see problems with each box, each area of each box, and I was not happy with them. But finally, I reached this somewhat final chicken scratch box, and each and every label in the box, my intuition is satisfied with. And I want to explain what this all means and what this box means. I'm just going to go over very quickly what this box is. This box is the answer to the sentences that I just read. And it's me trying to make a symbol in reality that you can perceive to be able to maybe grasp this idea, this concept. It's like a physical manifestation of this concept. And I'm going to try to make it all make sense. But I am not hopeful because I lack the ability to explain things simply. But I'm going to try. The four corners of the box obviously represent the functions, and the function definitions I'm bringing from Carl Jung, not Myers-Briggs, because they're very, very different. The top corner of the box is the action, the abstract action of a function, the directed abstract action of a function, not a dominant type, nothing like that. This is not dominant sensation. This is sensation in itself. The sensing function that every human being has, unless you are born blind, deaf, with no sense of smell and taste and touch. You sense things with your five senses. And everyone does this. So, functions have an action and a resultant material of the function. So when I say thinkers think thoughts, you know what that means. Thinkers is the dominant thinking type. Think is the directed action, and thoughts are the result of thinking, the action of thinking. And when we talk about type and functions, people conflate those things, and it's very important to not conflate those things because you cannot find what your habitual motivation is in consciousness if you conflate feelings with feeling. Because unconsciously, materials are generated subliminally and unconsciously in our psyche. In everyone's psyche. And so, if you say, I have all these thoughts and ideas, I must be a thinker, you are completely missing the point and you will be so confused. So you have to understand the difference between ideas and thoughts that are results of the action of direct thinking. And that I'm trying to demystify that and pull it apart for you. And it's impossible to do normally. For me, this took months of concentration. So I'm going to try and put that together for you in like these videos. So I wish I had what you have here. Anyways, the top corner is the direct action that a function does, the action of the function. So sensing action is this, then the thinking action, intuiting action, and the feeling action. Not the action of a ego that's this type of dominant type. Not that. Just the action that everyone has when everyone directs their function abstractly. The word in the middle of the box is the function realm that function action can operate in. When you read Carl Jung, you talk about objects. He talks about introvert and extrovert and subject and object, and we tend to think of object as as this thing that we all imagine in our mind what an object is, and and we just assume what the object is. But but you cannot do that because there are actually different kinds of objects. There's objects in the phenomenal world, there's objects in the noumenal world, which sensing can't access. There are objects in your mind, knowledge and information, which sensing can't access, and your other functions can't. The action of the function can't access, and the objects in your heart, which can't be accessed by the other functions. So how does this interplay work, and what gets passed to the other functions so that you can form more advanced structures of the inner workings of our psyche? That's what this is all about. So functions have different realms, different zones, different spaces that they operate in. Your five senses need to touch, feel, smell, hear, taste something that's tangibly real. And so your five senses operate in the phenomenal world. And your five senses can't touch something that's noumenal. You can't touch it. Can't touch information unless the information is made into a model or something so you can touch it. And you can't touch a feeling. You can't touch assessments and judgments of your heart unless they're built into some kind of like art or a movie or a book or music or food that's beautiful, that's aesthetically pleasing, or something that has different styles and things that can interpret what's on your heart to the phenomenal world. So the phenomenal world is the realm of sensing. Um, the realm of your intellect is knowledge and information in your mind. Then you have the realm of your heart and feelings. Get into that later, and the noumenal world, which your intuition has access to. And so there's different realms that functions have access to. Then this is something that Jung talks about: is each function has a material. For example, thinking produces thoughts, sensing produces sensations, feeling produces feelings, and intuition produces intuitions. So when people talk about the functions, they conflate these all the time. You talk about possibilities. Possibilities. I understand possibilities. I have all these possibilities floating around. Possibilities are a type of material that's produced from the action of your directed intuition. So those could have happened unconsciously, and you're just perceiving them in your consciousness in another realm. So you have to separate all those things. Intuition isn't possibilities, those aren't equal things. Sensing isn't sensations, the sensing function isn't sensations. It isn't tangible world. Those are different parts of that whole function space. That's not the whole thing, that's not the whole picture. It's not even part of it. So people tend to talk with functions, they only talk about one part or one result or the action itself. And unless you understand all the different parts of it, you're going to get confused, or you're going to confuse other people, and you're going to talk past each other and all these things. And so continuing on, so now you have the different spaces there, the middle word. Then you have three boxes here, 1, 2, 3. And those three boxes are the result of three questions I ask for each function, which are the questions I went over in the beginning, which is sensors sense sensations, sensors sense feelings, they don't feel them, sensors sense intuitions, sensors sense thoughts, sensors sense feelings, etc. They don't do the action of that function. The function happens, the action happens indirectly in their unconscious, and then manifests in their conscious, in their directed action, in three different ways. This doesn't get into introverted even and extroverted, which is the icing on the cake, which isn't in this picture, which is, I believe, in my opinion, is the last question that you ask, not the first. But in the beginning, you have these three boxes here. This answers the question of how sensors sense thoughts and don't think them. This is the answer of how sensors sense intuitions physically, but don't intuit them. This is the answer of how sensors sense feelings, but they don't feel them directly. And those are the answers in each box. And then you can go into each space and see the answer to the questions in each space. I've written out the answers in long form in other parts like this, and I go into explaining what I mean by that. What does it mean by intuitives intuit feelings, and they don't feel them directly? How can you intuit a feeling, and how can you feel a feeling? Those are two different things. And I was puzzled as to what I meant by this and what this even means. And I spent so much time wrestling with this, and that is what this series is going to be about. What does that mean? And if you are into type psychology, if you are into Jung, you should be able to answer these questions. How do intuitives intuit thoughts and not think them? That's really important. So let's find the answer. Listen with a grain of salt to my opinion on all this Jungian psychology and all these meanings of all these words and all this research, and then come to your own conclusion and form your own opinions and share them with me in Slack. And comment, because Slack can let us reply in thread. We can keep our conversations going in threads. We can respond in video. We can respond in audio messages. Any way you like. You can show pictures and show videos and describe these things to me. And please share with me your perspectives so that I can grow as well. And that's what I will be talking about in this function space series.